I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well-deserved, and you should get it.
Well-deserved. And wait, hear me out. I say well-deserved because by the standards used to award the Nobel Peace Prize, Donald Trump would actually be one of the less odious recipients of this award. Even if you combine the death tolls of Iran, Yemen, and Gaza, which took place under his watch, and which, depending on who's calculating, could be anything from 40,000 people to 200,000 people, that would still fall quite some distance short of the last US president to win a Nobel Peace Prize. I'm talking, of course, about polite, well-spoken, polished guy over here. He dropped over 26,000 bombs on 7 countries. In 2016 alone. Yeah, he was a Nobel laureate in 2009. Yeah, the same guy who looked at the richest and most prosperous country on the entire continent of Africa and thought, we need to bomb these guys in their infrastructure 7,000 times in 8 months. By the way, said country no longer exists in any meaningful sense and its inhabitants now trade slaves. Yeah, this was the same guy who killed a US citizen and his son with a drone strike because, well, just because. This is the guy who, yeah, you get where I'm going with this. The Nobel Prize is honestly a bit of a joke because when you examine the list of previous recipients, it gets so much worse. Take former Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, who won the 1978 Nobel Peace Prize. This guy was literally a terrorist. Like, those are not my words. The British government described him as a terrorist. He once led the deadliest terror organization in the entire Middle East, a Zionist extremist group called Irgun Zvi Leumi. If you've heard of the King David Hotel bombing of July 22, 1946 in Tel Aviv, yeah, that was these guys. 91 people died, by the way. A few decades and a whole lot of land theft and genocide later, he became a Nobel laureate, and he lived happily ever after. Who doesn't like a happy ending? And there's another former US president, Jimmy Carter, who won the award in 2002 for basically being a very nice guy. But was he though? Well, if you were to ask a Cambodian who lived through the deadly Khmer Rouge regime of Pol Pot, where as many as 2 million people, or roughly 1/4 of the country's entire population, died in a government-led genocide, they will probably tell you no. Question: who provided political cover and logistical support to Pol Pot and his forces for years, even after they were eventually forced out of power and into exile? Yeah, it was this smiling nice guy. Genocide? What genocide? And then probably worst of all, Satan won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1973. Well, his name wasn't actually Satan, that was just his nickname. You might know him as Henry Kissinger, former US Secretary of State and architect of the US bombing campaigns in Cambodia and Laos during the Vietnam War, which resulted in the deaths of up to 500,000 people, the vast majority of them civilians. Yeah, the same guy authored the so-called Kissinger Report, a national security memo which stated that population growth in resource-rich third world countries was a threat to US national security because essentially the more of their own resources that these countries use, the less will be available for cheap export to the US. Yeah, this Antichrist won the Nobel Peace Prize with zero irony. So I'm going to make a prediction here. With headlines like this and this one starting to show up in media, I'm going to bet that sometime in the coming few years, ISIS head chopper terrorist guy who once had a $10 million bounty on his head, who has now executed a smooth change of name from Mohammed al-Jolani to Ahmed al-Sharaa, could very well end up becoming the next recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. And if that were to happen, he wouldn't even be the first terrorist to receive the prize. Just another day of empire.